Densha De Go is a series of arcade train simulator games. Sounds weird, doesn't it? Simulator games tend to be slow, in-depth games, usually on the PC, but Densha De Go was on consoles and in the arcades. And how do you make a game about driving trains? They're literally on rails. Yet the game's not only got made, but have spawned a long-running series. I've wanted to play the Densha De Go games for a long time, and reviewing the simple series has given me an excuse to play them. And for those watching these as they come out, the reason I'm doing this video now and not in the proper order is because I was doing some PC maintenance and didn't want to risk losing progress on a long video project. The order of these games is baffling. There are 3 games on the PS1. Densha De Go, Densha De Go 2 and Densha De Go Nagoya Railway. Sounds fairly straightforward. However, Densha De Go Nagoya Railway, the last of the PS1 games, is Simple Series Volume 102. Densha De Go 1 is Simple Series 103. Then you have the spin-off games like Densha De Go, which is about steam trains, and Densha De Go Professional, which seems to be a more difficult version of the first game. That's assuming the information I found online is accurate. All the usual wikis seem to be vague with information about these games. Since Densha De Go is a huge rabbit hole that spans over many games across many years, including an initial D crossover with drifting trains, I'm just going to review the 2 simple series games in the order I played them. Densha De Go is Japanese for let's go by train, if the internet is to be believed. The internet also says that Nagoya refers to a private train company in Japan, so I'm guessing the courses in this game are based on real life train lines. After a fairly wholesome intro showing off trains, the game opens with a menu that's in English. The beginner's course is a tutorial. Even though the tutorial is in Japanese, it's easy enough to follow. Up and down controls the acceleration, and square and circle controls the brake. One thing that isn't covered in the tutorial is the signs with the black X on them mean that you have to honk the horn with the circle button. Triangle is the emergency brake, but you never really have to use it as far as I know. The game itself is fairly straightforward. You have so many penalty points and you lose them if you do something wrong, like speeding, being late or running a red light. If you run out of points, it's game over. That's it. You have infinite continues and you start back at the last station that you stopped at, so you could brute force most of the game if you really want to. Going isn't the only thing you'll be doing. Stopping is an important part of the game too. You have to pick up passengers after all. And you can't just slam on the brakes either, or people will complain, complete with a funny animation. When you have to stop at a station, you have to stop as close to the line as possible. The game is really picky about it as well, with only a 5-meter gap each way, and even then, going over by any amount costs you points. Going over the line is bad because you lose penalty points, but stopping short is worse because then you have to inch forward with all the dignity of a man in a hot dog suit while a dog humps his leg. Probably the biggest run killer is if a train automatically gets stopped. Not only do you lose points for the fault that made them override your control, but you're probably not going to make it on time and lose all of your points that way. There are ways to gain points. I'm not sure what triggers them. I think getting a perfect run or honking a horn at workers on the track are 2 of the ways that it happens. Completing a course gets a nice bit of art of the tutorial lady and the credits roll. Complete the stage without using a continue and you get a different bit of art and a little FMV clip of the train you were driving. I think. I've only unlocked 1 clip. There's some extra goodies too, like the photos of the trains, along with what I assume are technical details about them. It all seems crafted with care to appeal to train enthusiasts. I like the photos. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about digital photos from this time period that interests me. Maybe it's the low resolution combined with the compression or something, I don't know. There's a wide variety of trains, each with different scenery and performance. I think my favourite might be the tram, and not just because I find trams more interesting than trains. Being in a street means that there's more going on visually, and in terms of gameplay, you not only have to manage your speed and brakes, but also honk at cars that get close to the track and keep your eye out for traffic lights as well as the train signal lights. It doesn't sound like much, but in practice it's a lot to juggle. That's not to say the other trains are boring. You're constantly managing speed, brakes, and watching for lights and signs. It's surprisingly engaging for such a simple game. Simple Series 103 is simply titled Densha De Go and seems to be a re-release of the first game in the series. When you first turn on the game, you're greeted with this fast-paced intro flashing images of trains on screen like it's trying to brainwash you with subliminal messages. After accepting trains as our true Lord and Saviour, you get into the game and it's basically the same as the game I just talked about. There's only 4 tracks this time and no trams, but the courses that are here seem to be slightly better graphically, or at least have more visual variety in a single course. The presentation is one of the reasons I thought this might be a sequel at first. The HUD is arguably nicer, and the intro screen showing the train that you selected is nicer too, being a train rushing past a scenic view with a dramatic camera angle, whereas in Nagoya line you just get a clip of gameplay with the train that you've selected on the next line over from the one that the camera's on. Yet there's no pixel art of the tutorial lady at the end of the stage, and the FMV is generic CGI, and as mentioned there's only 4 tracks as far as I could see. It's not a bad game, just nowhere near the level of Nagoya despite some occasional improvements in presentation. Overall, Densha De Go is every bit the bizarre Japanese arcade train sim I was hoping for. The games are surprisingly engaging despite their simplicity. It's a good game to put on and just play a few rounds of, just like many arcade games. Although that simplicity is also the game's biggest weakness, since at a certain point it just comes down to practice and track memorization. Of the 2 games, Nagoya Line is definitely my pick. It's got more trains and better, more varied gameplay. And the menus are in English, which helps. I think Densha De Go has slightly better graphics, but that's all it's really got over Nagoya Line. Either game is worth checking out if you're at all curious about the series, which you likely are if you watched this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.